Hello, welcome to the Can Sci-Fi channel. So this video shows a Pilot Omni build. So this is from the pilot episode, and that's what I was focused on replicating and trying to do this at the minimal cost. So I did have a dome that was made back in the 80s by my father, just utilizing small explosive device to form the dome. And I did have the body, which was a glass bead resin plastic, and I had the dials as well. So this is kind of what it looked like at the beginning. And I did have a back that I made out of, because it is costly to 3D print the back as well. So I made one out of a thickness of brass that was from a local hobby shop. So this is kind of what it looked like and what the take was on what it would be and how it would be engraved. So these are the dials, so just showing what I initially had for the transfer decals. So what I was going to do was do the transfer decals in order to minimize cost, and then coat it with a spray coating, and then do an epoxy over top of that. So this is showing, that was some of the red lettering that would be done as well. So just starting on the engraving, and this is the one that was later episodes. This was utilized, the one on the right, but again I was just focused on the pilot episode. So initially I had thought about using a foil wrap. So doing a foil wrap and coating that with epoxy for strength. So instead of painting, because painting wouldn't look as realistic as this, as close to being metal as this one. And I was going to use a piece of brass for the sides as well, so it was going to look something like this. And then I was planning on using a couple of layers of that thin foil, but again just coating it in epoxy for strength. So it would be a clear epoxy, and epoxy does yellow over time, but with brass it wouldn't matter. And that's mostly in UV radiation, so it wouldn't be exposed to the sun too much. But I didn't like the looks of it. You can see it's very different color, and even though it was cheap, it was not the best option there. So this is just showing the comparison of the two, and just showing some of the engraving that was done. So the engraving was done using it's a clicker tool, so you can see underneath that it came through just like on the original. So it was a clicker tool that is used for doing center punching for drilling holes, and then it was, you can see on the outside it was just kind of not very visible, the lettering, so I went over it with an engraver pen, so just to make it a little bit easier to read, and again more like the original, and did the top filigree with an engraving pen as well. So showing what the dome looks like at the final, and this is showing the electronics as I was starting to get that developed. And this thing I had torn apart quite a bit because I was using it for a silver Omni, and then ended up taking off the paint, and then I was going to use it for this one. So this is a simple circuit, just a piezo buzzer, and that device at the top is just a 2 Hertz flasher. This one is showing the green light, which is, there's a button to take the capacitor charge out. So there's a capacitor that this goes through in order, and that shows the capacitor there. So the current just goes through the capacitor. If it didn't have the capacitor in the circuit, it would just be a constant buzzing noise. So the capacitor just, the current discharges through the capacitor, so you have to discharge that current again. That's why the button is there. And this shows the red and green that I was going to use, that I ended up using in the final version, but just doing a comparison shot. And this is the Omni that I was trying to replicate, something like that. I didn't end up doing the crosshairs. So I ended up doing a 3D print of this, and I made it the cheapest possible way you can, so it ended up being just over $100 for the body, but you can see the center's all cut out, and everything is cut out from the internals as well. So you can see how thin the walls are, so I did reinforce those, and I glued in, so I epoxied in some rings that were from the original one that I had built back in the 80s with parts my father gave me. This is doing the rings, so just showing one of the rings that would be sprayed in lacquer, and then so I did 10 coats of a lacquer spray, and then did an epoxy coat over top of that, so it's very rigid. Turned out well. So you'll see as the video progresses with all of the dials and put together. This is just the date. And it's tricky to get it to stay on and keep it wet so it doesn't tear. It is a plastic, and it's printed out in a printer, so it's all in Microsoft Word. It's showing the other two Omnis. This is showing the what it turned out to be, and I used those transfer decals to make the V as well. So it had some good definition on the dials. So I had two back plates on the right as well, so I was figuring out which one to use, because one allowed more internal room, the other one was just a flat plate. So I had these parts just lying around, so you know, that minimized the cost.
Marshall, one for Jeff. She's all broke up.
So this is before the epoxy.
Well, I can show you everything you need.
And this is with the lighting, so the lights were in place, and I was positioning the holes there so you can see how the back plate would fit on, but I did not 3D print those hole locations, so I had to manually do that, which in retrospect I probably should have done for the cost. It wouldn't have been a lot more cost there. But it did work out fine. I used JB Weld epoxy, which is a very strong epoxy. I think it's around 5,000 psi strength, 5,600 maybe. So showing how I was locating the dome to the body as well, and this is showing the digital globe. So I did put a digital globe. I put that in all of them, and this one just engages from the side as opposed to the back. So this just cycles through it. So this is as I was going through the build process here. And I did 3D print a center ring, which was I think $26. So the total cost of this was the $130 plus $26. And I did have all of the extra parts there. So the objective with the digital globe is you can put a painted globe, you can put all kinds of other globes on top of that. You don't need to to use that digital globe, but I always just put that in because it's easy to cycle through and you can set it to whatever you want. So the one digital globe, I have 100 maps in there. This one, I think it's the same, like 100 maps in the globe.
I'm not afraid of death.
That's starting to assemble. This shows a couple of different indicators that I was thinking about. And you can see the top plunger is red, just like the original Pilot episode. And then that's the red to green switch on the side. And that's the digital globe switches. And I ended up putting a hole in the back just for the charging. So the center wasn't secure, but so this was a painted globe that was put in. So I did that on it was a ping pong ball, just like the original was done with a ping pong ball, and so it gives a very realistic, similar look to the original. And this shows the later series Omni as well as the Pilot series Omni, so those two designs. So I'm just doing a comparison here.
They butchered everybody, including the women and children. These people managed to get out alive by hiding in the fields.
Please ask if there's anything.
All of her brothers and sisters were killed before her eyes.
So the one on the right has a digital globe as well, but it's not on for this shot. Just showing the differences, the one on the left being slightly smaller light sockets and some differences there that I wanted to make for this Pilot series. You can see the dome is quite flat compared to the later version. It shows the thickness with the digital globe, so in order to make it thinner I could take out the digital globe and make that one thinner. This one's a little bit thicker, the back's not quite on yet. So this shows what it looked like when it was finished with the digital globe in there. So the top plunger is the discharge for the capacitor, so that allows the green light to discharge. And so you just press that before doing the green light to discharge that. So this is all three Omnis